Hello everybody, Chris here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how we can install a virtual operating system using Oracle VM VirtualBox inside of Linux. So in order to pick up VirtualBox, the most straightforward way for Linux installation or many of the other types of Linux out there is to go to virtualbox.org/wiki/Linux_downloads and pick out the version that corresponds with your operating system. In my case, it's Ubuntu 16.04, and I have the 64-bit version, so I'm going to choose AMD 64. And actually, I already went ahead and installed it for us. So basically just downloading the installer, double-clicking it, running it, installing it like any other app. And once you open it up, you'll get this window. So what we need to do here, obviously, is to go ahead and hit New, and give our new virtual operating system a name, a type, and a version. So I'm going to start with version, going down and selecting Linux, and by default, conveniently, it goes to Ubuntu 64-bit, but you see that there are many other types you can select from here. Certain types of Linux, like Manjaro, are based off of other distributions like Arch, so it's good to know where your Linux version falls in the scheme of things, but for my purposes, and probably many of you guys out there, Ubuntu is going to be the choice here, since Ubuntu is really popular. Well, you could also be installing Windows, whatever. So go ahead and give it a name, and once you have your version chosen, then we're going to be good to go. And the kind of important thing about that is that it will figure out how much resources the virtual machine is going to need to operate. So for Ubuntu Linux, 1 gigabyte is probably about as low as you want to go, but I'm going to go ahead and bump that up to 2 gigabytes just in case and just because we can. Next, we have creating a virtual hard disk. So the operating itself goes on a file in your real hard drive, and whenever you boot up Oracle VirtualBox, it's actually booting up the operating system contained within that file. So here we can either create a virtual hard disk now, use an existing virtual hard disk, or don't add a virtual hard disk, but in most cases you're probably going to want to create one now. So we're going to go ahead and hit create there. You can choose from one of these three types. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as the defaults. And you can either choose to have a fixed sized hard drive or a dynamically allocated hard drive. So if it's dynamically allocated and you reach the maximum capacity, like it said 8 gigabytes before, then what will happen is Oracle VirtualBox will just make that file, make that virtual hard drive bigger. So it's actually kind of a cool idea. I'm going to leave it as dynamically allocated just because if you use fixed size, you can't easily go back and change it later on. So we'll go ahead and use dynamically allocated. 8 gigabytes is the default, and that's plenty of storage for just installing Ubuntu. I mean, of course, when you add in all the apps, it'll grow in size, but that's why you have dynamically allocated. So we'll go ahead and create that there. So now what we're going to need to do is go into the settings menu, look for storage, and then where it says IDE controller IDE, that's referring to your disk drive. So we want to click on the empty disk slot indicated by the disk icon. Go over here to the right and click this drop down where it will say choose a virtual optical disk file. In other words, it's talking about an ISO file or a operating system disk represented by an ISO file on your computer. So mine's located in my downloads folder, and it's going to be Ubuntu 16.04.1, but whichever operating system you're installing, you're probably going to want it in ISO format because that's the most straightforward way to do it. So opening that up, now the disk is located in this imaginary drive. Well, it's not really imaginary, it's virtual, but you know what I mean. So we'll go ahead and hit OK here. And now that it's in the drive, we can power up our computer. This may be kind of reminiscent to installing a operating system on a real computer, because normally you'd put this operating disk into the drive and then you'd boot it up and it would prompt you if you want to boot into the operating system for installation. That's exactly what we're doing here. It's just all virtual. So you saw a second ago the Ubuntu screen flashed for a second, and now the Ubuntu 16.04 installer is going ahead and loading for us, which is exactly what we want to see. If you're installing a different operating system, of course, it's going to look a little bit different, but generally it's the same process. And once this goes ahead, boots into Ubuntu, it's going to prompt us for some installation stuff. We're going to want to install Ubuntu here, if you're following along and if you're doing Ubuntu. And we can choose if we want to download the updates while installing and install third-party software. Don't worry, I'm going to cut ahead for the actual installation part. We're just going to go ahead and get these user input steps out of the way. So continue with that. It's optional for you if you want to check those boxes, basically. Erase disk and install Ubuntu. The thing to note here is that the disk that's actually being erased is the virtual disk. It's not the hard drive where my real operating system, my real copy of Ubuntu is on. So this is perfectly fine. We'll go ahead and install that now. That is, of course, assuming that you are using a brand new virtual disk and you're not loading this operating system onto one that already has stuff. But for most of you guys out there, erasing the disk will be fine. Go ahead and choose your location in the world, hit continue, and then your language, which typically will default to what you actually need, depending on your location. Here I'm going to select US English and expanding the VirtualBox window so that we can see everything. Hit continue, and we can of course dismiss these messages up there at the top right. Give the computer a name. Chris VirtualBox, that works perfectly fine. And a password for the virtual machine. Go ahead and hit continue. You could even choose login automatically if this is just for testing purposes and you never intend to have anything important on it, but hey, a password can't really hurt as long as you can remember the password. So now from this point, it's just going to copy all of the files over and install the operating system. So I'm going to cut ahead to where we have Ubuntu installed. So once Ubuntu is installed, you're going to want to shut off the machine and go up to settings once again. There's a few places you can do it. This is one of it. And storage. And with the controller ID, the disk drive, make sure that that's actually removed, and you can do that by unchecking the Ubuntu ISO or removing the disk from the virtual drive. In any case, just make sure that your virtual drive, the disk drive that is empty before you go ahead and boot Ubuntu up again, or whichever operating system you happen to install, just so that when it boots up, it boots into the installed operating system and not the installation disk. So with that done, and I go ahead and restart the virtual machine, it should go ahead and boot straight into Ubuntu after a couple seconds here of loading some stuff up. So yeah, just give it a minute. Ubuntu. And seems to be working, hopefully. Ah, yes, great, there we go. So that's the basic idea behind installing a virtual operating system on Oracle VM VirtualBox on Linux. So I've been Chris, thank you for watching. I hope you found this video helpful, and if it was, consider donating to my Patreon or the channel, and I'll see you in my future videos.